Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about important topics you need to talk about during your courtship. Okay, I know a lot of times people are always confused about things to talk about with their partners, especially during the courtship stage, because yes, there's a lot of gists, there's always a lot of gossip as well, because they're probably your bestie at this time. But also I know that this time is a very important phase in your relationship, and you can't just keep on with the gist and the gossip and leaving out important things that you need to talk about. But as a young lady or as a young guy who is interested in spending the rest of your life with someone, the courtship period is a time where you need to ask really important and fundamental questions, just because you're going to spend a lot of time with this person in the future, you're gonna get married, and you need to absolutely understand everything happening in their world. And the only time you get to know is when you ask specific questions, right? Sometimes when they are talking to you, they will include that in like their gist and some of your talks. But if you need to know certain things, you need to ask specific questions, just because you want to avoid assumption. And two, you also want to avoid frustration somewhere in the future when you're just like, oh my God, is this something that I should have known in the past and it never came up? Ask every question that you can ask. So the first thing I want to talk about today is hygiene and health status. If you have certain genotype, for example, there are certain people that you can't get married to. And so what do you want to do in your courtship period is to ask your partner, what's your genotype? Like if you're AA and I'm AA, then that's okay, we can get married. If you're AS and I'm AA, that's okay, we can get married. But if you're AS and he's AS, you can't get married, because the chances of you giving birth to an SS kid is actually high, and you don't want to bring a child into the world to suffer just because you both love yourselves, which is okay. But I have one of my videos, which I'll link here, which says love is not enough. Like, there are other things to consider. Even though you love yourself, there are other things you need to think about before you actually go ahead into marrying someone. And genotype is absolutely one of them. Apart from genotype, you also need to know if there are like illnesses that they are suffering from at the moment, or if they have any sicknesses or like long-term illnesses that they are battling with at the moment, or that would possibly come up in the future. You also need to ask about genetic illnesses, like for example in their family, like do they have a list of like health problems that is genetic, that people in their family always have from generation to generation. These are kind of things you need to find out, and you also discuss that side of things with him as well, because it's both ways, right? If you ask a question from your partner, you also should be willing to share that information with the person. And so in terms of health and hygiene, you want to ask about their genotype, you want to ask about their family or genetic illnesses. Do they have any medical diagnosis, past or present, that you need to know about? Because when you get married, you're going to have to take care of a partner, isn't it? And you need to know what you're getting yourself into. You also need to be prepared to take care of them in case those illnesses, resurfaces at some point in the future. Number two, you need to know their financial status. Do they have investments? Do they have savings? What kind of job do they do? How much do they get paid? And stuff like that. I hear a lot of narrative on the internet these days. I'm just like, wow, this generation. And the reason is this, like a lot of people say, oh, I don't want her to know my financial status, so she will not follow me for the money. Really? Oh, I don't want him to know my financial status, so he will not be there just for the money. No. If you're going to get married to somebody, there are many other values that you would have checked before you actually get married to them. And if you have decided to get married to someone, it is full disclosure on everything. Full disclosure. Okay, there's nothing like, oh, I don't want her to fall in love with my money, that's why I'm not going to tell her how much I earn, that's why I'm going to tell her how much my business makes. The moment you decide you're going to commit to this person, it is full disclosure. Finances, every single thing, you need to let them know. Okay, so whatever financial challenges or financial prosperity that you have, you need to share with this person, and they absolutely need to know. If there are people you don't feel comfortable sharing your financial status with, then why are you even getting married to them? Like, if you don't trust them enough to share this kind of details with them, why do you want to get married to them? If you're not comfortable sharing all of these things with them, then don't just do it. Like, don't get married to them. Find someone you're comfortable sharing these things with and that their values align with yours, and get married to them. It's as simple as that. Now, still under finances, something else you might want to think about is when we get married, how do we then want to do in terms of like big financial projects of our family, in terms of giving to parents, to friends, for charity, going on vacations? Do we save ahead of time? How do we do it? Do we have joint accounts or do we have personal accounts? These are things you need to agree on. Okay, you also need to know who is the biggest spender and who is not, so that you can keep each other in check. To be honest, I think I'm the biggest spender in the house. Okay, so because there's a tendency for the biggest spender to like keep spending all the money, buying a lot of things that might not be necessary at a particular point in time. So you need to know, okay, who spends more money, who is the accountant of the family, like how do we keep record of things that we're spending on, how do we make big financial decisions, in the family. These are things you need to talk about during your courtship stage. Another thing you need to talk about will be your childhood experiences or past traumas. For example, like if people have had certain childhood, it affects how they react to events in the future. It tells a lot about the things that they are scared about or that they're afraid about, and you want to know this about your partner once you start, courting. You want to listen to them tell their childhood stories. Just ask them like, what experiences stood out for you during your childhood? What are you most scared of? When did it happen? Ask them those kind of questions, because for example, when you have conflicts in the future, they might react to certain things in certain ways because of the past trauma that they've had or childhood experiences that they've had. And for you might just think, but look, there's nothing wrong with this thing, like it's just as simple as it is. It is not as simple as you think it is, just because they've probably had experiences in the past that is reminding them of that experience at that point in time, which is why they're reacting to certain things in certain ways. So you need to sit them down and say, tell me about your childhood experiences, tell me about your past trauma. Things like that affect how we respond to things in our adult phases as well, right? So you want to have that understanding, and you want to really, really be clear about what it is, so that in the future, when things related to that thing they've gone through, when it resurfaces and they react in a certain way, you are acting out of understanding because you know that they've gone through something like that in the past, or you're acting out of empathy because you know they've gone through something like that in the past, or actually even gives you an understanding of how to deal with that situation because you're fully aware of what it is. Another thing you also need to talk about is like family backgrounds, their father, their mother, if they have stepmothers, if they have stepfathers or stepbrothers, stepsisters, or siblings. You need to know everything. How many are they? Who are your close family, friends? Who are your close extended family members, uncles, aunties, stuff like that? You absolutely need to know all of them. You maybe not necessarily have to meet all of them, but in terms of understanding stories and how these people are connected to your partner and to your partner's family, these are information that you need to have, because tomorrow things might come up, things might happen, and you need to have that knowledge to hand. So these are the kind of things you need to start talking about early on in the relationship. Just still talking about like family history, you also need to ask like, what kind of holidays do you celebrate in your family? Do you have like specific family traditions that you keep to? Do you have family celebrations where everyone has to then come back home to celebrate with with a big family? What are the things that you practice as a family? What are the things that you believe in? What's your religion? Are there other people practicing on that religion even within the same family? Ask a lot of questions about family history, and you definitely get answers. So this next topic is something that a lot of people actually gloss over or just try not to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it here, okay? It's about sex and sexuality. Okay, you need to ask them if they've been sexually active before. For example, how many people have they slept with? If they have been, if the answer to that question about being sexually active before is yes, you want to know how many people have you been with? What's your body count? Like, when was the last sexual encounter? When did you last have sex? Do you believe in waiting for sex, until when you get married? I, for example, I'm an advocate of no sex before marriage. That is who I am. That's what I believe in. And so if that's your belief as well, you need to discuss about this in your in your courtship, so you and your partner do not find yourself in a place where you're constantly being in an environment where you are tempted to have sex before marriage, or just that no one is pressurizing the other person to have sex before marriage, because you've already agreed that this is what you want to do. You want to be celibate to your wedding night before you actually have sex. Also, you need to ask them if they have same-sex attractions. That's not new in this day and age, is it? You need to ask them, do you have same-sex attraction? The sex that you have now, that you identify with now, was that what you were born with? Like, these questions need to be asked, because there are a lot of like body transformations and things like that happening, and you want to be absolutely clear on who you're getting into a relationship with. Another interesting one to talk about would be having children. So how many children do we want to have? How many kids, like how many boys, how many girls, for example, if you want to go into that level of detail. It's also like, after our wedding, how long do we want to wait before we start, having children? How many years do we want to wait? I know, like, there's this thing, especially in like Africa or in Nigeria, where immediately you just get married and people start praying for you. They're just like, 9 months later, they're going to see your children. People have plans. Like, they don't just want to get married and just start giving birth to kids. So when you see them, pray for them. But that issue about like 9 months in, you're going to have kids, they're going to come back here and rejoice with you. Yes, do they want to have kids? Yes, but do they want to have it immediately? Maybe not. So stop like putting pressure on people, saying, oh, 9 months later, we're going to come and rejoice with you. That is left for them and their partner, okay? So you also want to discuss this with your partner. Should we wait for a year? Should we wait for 2 years? Should we wait for 3 years before we start having kids? And then when we start having kids, how do we take care of them? Do we have nannies? Do we take care of them by ourselves? Do we just have someone come in on weekends, to take care of things, and then they can go? When do they start nursery? Things like that are things you actually want to talk about. Some partners want like a lot of children. Some people do not want. So what you then need to talk about is, okay, how do we come to a compromise? If you want a whole football team, of 11 people or so, and your partner probably just wants 1 or 2, how do we reach a compromise? To be honest, like, these things are serious conversations. I'm not kidding you. I am absolutely not kidding, okay? Also important is the fact that you need to ask your partner, do they have kids outside of the marriage that you're going to go into now? Like, do they have other kids before they met you? How do you want to treat that dynamics of them having children before you met them, who will now become your step kids or your stepchild? How is that dynamics going to work? These are things you actually absolutely want to talk about. Are they still in contact with their partner who they had the kids with? Are they co-parenting? What is happening with that situation, so you can see how to incorporate it into your own relationship and your marriage when you eventually get married. Something that's also important to talk about would be past relationships. Once you've dated someone in the past, you want to have the conversation about who the person was, how long you dated, what happened in the relationship, what did not happen. You absolutely need to talk about that, okay? You need to discuss, about your exes with your new partner, why did you break up, what led to the breakup, because you need to have all this information as well, right? Because you don't want to go out there tomorrow and somebody's like, oh, do you know I dated your partner? And you're just like, you dated my partner? In which world did that happen? Or you want to have full disclosure so that they know everything that happened in your past relationship. You also know everything that happened in their past relationship as well. You know these people by names, by pictures, by whatever it was, but you absolutely have, an understanding of whom they dated in the past and why they broke up and how long they dated and when, and all of that information. Whatever is important to you to ask, absolutely do ask, but it's definitely important that you know people that they've dated or been with in the past. Another thing you need to find out is about their friends. Who are their friends? Because those people are the board members. So so you need to find out, who are your friends? Do you have close friends? Do you have people that you really roll with? Who are your top 5 friends, your top 3 friends? How did you meet them? Where did you meet? How long have you been friends for? How close are they to you? What kind of experiences have you shared in the past? You absolutely need to know about their friends, because honestly, we are not exactly different from the kind of people we call our friends. That's why they say, tell me your friend, like show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, because birds of a feather flock together, you know, this kind of things. Like whoever you decide to call your friend would have a mirror of reflection on the kind of person that you are. So if you can tell the kind of friends that they keep, then you absolutely know, you know, what that taste in friendship is like, what the kind of person also is like. Do you get what I mean? Sometimes you have some of those friends who are not exactly a representation of what you believe or who you are, but absolutely certain things will bring you guys together, isn't it? So when you find out, if you think that someone behaves absolutely different from how your partner will behave, then the question is, how did you meet? Like, why are you people friends? That's like, oh, maybe we are work colleagues or we met at work or something like that. Then you can tell why, oh, this person is absolutely different from who he would originally be friends with, and this is why. At least you have that understanding. Okay, so ask questions about their friends, and you know, also important is to ask about their role models as well, because if you know who they put in that pedestal of role models, then you know the kind of people that they look up to, if they have any. You know, who are the kind of people that they follow on social media, for example. Who are they always talking about and loving, you know, whatever their takes are on certain issues. These things are important for you to find out and for you to know, because it gives you an insight into who your partner is as well. This next point is actually important and is about understanding their love languages. Actually ask them, what are your love languages? Okay, let me know if you want me to make like a video on love languages, and I will do. But yes, it's important that you ask your partner, what is your love language, or what are your love languages, because you need to love them how they feel loved. Okay, you need to love your partner how your partner feels loved, because if you love your partner in the way that you feel loved, then they won't feel loved like that. So, but if you understand how they feel loved, you can just make notes and ensure that you show them love in that way. There are 5 love languages according to Gary Chapman. There's acts of service, there is words of affirmation, there is touch, there is buying of gifts, and there's quality time, right? Out of these 5 things, you need to ask your partner what comes top on that list for you. What's your, you know, love language? And once they tell you, make note of those love languages that are dominant for them and love them in that way. If, for example, your partner's love language is words of affirmation and you keep buying gifts severally, they won't feel loved. Because you love to buy people gifts do not mean that they love to receive gifts. They probably don't even want your gifts. They just want you to spend a lot of time with them, or they just want you to give them words of why can't I pronounce this word? They just want you to give them words of affirmation. Okay, so learn how your partner wants to be loved and love them in that way. Make note of it in your courtship. That is your discovery phase, where you know that, oh, my partner definitely loves this. My partner definitely loves me helping out with stuff rather than buying them gifts or giving them money, or they enjoy when I spend some time with them, you know, just even if it's in the house. They absolutely love it more than me buying them food or taking them to a restaurant. Like, if you keep doing all the things in the world that you think they want, other than that thing that they actually consider to be their love language, then there is a problem. Okay, so absolutely get to know what their love language is and love them exactly how they want to be loved. The next thing that you absolutely need to talk about is conflict resolution method. So you need to sit down and ask yourself, the two of you, how do we resolve issues when we have them? Because trust me, you will have conflicts. You will disagree a lot of times. We know each other very well. Okay, but what you also want to talk about is, okay, when we do offend each other, because that will absolutely happen, how do we intend to resolve, you know, the conflict, the offense? Obviously, like when I talk about conflict, I'm talking about healthy conflicts, right? I'm not talking about a part where your partner starts abusing you verbally or physically or domestic violence. None of those things. When I talk about conflict, I mean healthy conflict, right? Which will happen in every relationship. Okay, that a relationship is happy doesn't mean that there is an absence of disagreement or conflict in that relationship. And so two of you need to talk about, or when we then have conflicts, how are we going to solve them? You know, what is the mechanism that we need to put into place to solve these issues? Do we take some time to cool off before we then come back and talk about it? Or do the person who is offended, is it the person who comes forth first to say, well, you offended me and I don't like it and this is what you did? Or is there a point where it gets to where you then need to seek counseling or therapy, or involve a third party who is mature enough to counsel you both? You know, how do we resolve conflicts and how do we deal with them? In my opinion, I would say, you know, try and deal with your conflicts, the both of you, by yourself. Like, don't try to involve third parties. But when it comes to a place then where both of you cannot reach a compromise, where issues are really escalating, then do not be afraid to involve third parties, where you can then seek for counseling for people who you both respect and are mature enough, or from professionals in that field, you know, to both find a way to resolve your issues. Okay, I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't involve third parties in your matter, don't tell it to any person, stay with it, stick with it. When it gets absolutely out of hand and two of you cannot reach a compromise, involve third parties, relevant ones, that will help you to solve the problem. The next thing we need to talk about will be temperament. You need to know what your temperament is and what the temperament of your partner is. That way you know how to deal with them, and you also want to ask them, how do you feel recharged as a person? For example, if they're an introvert, they probably want to spend a lot of time in the house and not going out to parties or meeting other people, whereas an extrovert is the absolute opposite of that. I know, because I am one. I am an extrovert. Okay, so an introvert likes to feel recharged when they're alone, or alone with people that they feel really comfortable with. They don't want to be out there in the face of the world doing a lot of things and being busy. Whereas you as an extrovert, that's how you get recharged, like meeting people, being at parties, meeting other people. That's the kind of thing that you like to do. And so the question will now be, how do we balance this? I also want to give you what you want, but I also want to feel happy in this relationship. And so how do we marry the two together? Is there a point where we then say, oh, today's your day, is the introvert's day, let's do what you want, and today's my day and let's go out there, you know, just balancing things off. So you need to understand their temperament and the things that appeal to them or things that do not appeal to them, and how you can both make it work in that relationship. Another thing you should start talking about earlier on in relationships is about roles and responsibility. So when we get married, who's going to do what? Who's going to take out the trash? Who's going to do, you know, the laundry? Who's going to take care of the food and stuff like that? You absolutely want to say out clearly so that everyone knows what they are doing, right? You also want to find out from your partner, are you someone who would want to eat like fresh food every day of the week and you wouldn't want to eat out? Or are you okay for us to dine out sometimes, or have like takeouts when we're both tired and back from work and unable to cook? Or when one partner is sick, can the other person actually cook the food? You know, like, honestly, that's something you need to talk about, because some people are like, oh, I don't feel comfortable eating outside, or I don't feel comfortable doing this, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So absolutely, when the person who's supposed to do that is not feeling well enough to do it, are you open to having other alternatives? Or even if I'm sick, I have to cook fresh food for you to eat because, well, you can't eat outside. Well, if that's what you and your partner want, that's absolutely okay, but that's something you should know from the onset. It's not like you get married and they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you, but look, you're gonna have to make me fresh meals every day. Ooh. Anyways, talk about feeding, roles and responsibility. All of those things you absolutely need to talk about. Another thing you want to talk about would be spiritual beliefs. I know a lot of people, like, you want to marry somebody you share the same religion with and the same religious beliefs with, but the issue is, like, even in that big religious umbrella, there are subsets of that religion that has different beliefs, and that's something you also want to take into account. Like, even though we are all Christians, do we believe the same thing? Do we have the same beliefs as well? Even though we are all Muslims, for example, or we are all Hindus, for example, or whatever it is religion that you practice, you also want to find out if they believe the same thing like you do, because that is key to raising your family. For example, if you're a Christian and you're married to a Muslim, for example, why are you going to be teaching your kids? How do you want to raise your family? Is it that they learn Christianity and they learn Islam, or, like, do you get what I mean? Like, or you're like same Christians, but you believe different doctrinal principles, you know, how do you teach your children that? How do you view life in that way? Because these things will form part of the things that will inform your decisions in the future. And so when you want to make a decision and you both have the same faith but different beliefs, whose one should we now go along with? And that can cause, you know, potential conflict or potential issues for you in the future. And that's something you absolutely want to be clear about before you get married. Another thing to talk about would be habits and addictions. Like, what are the things that you love doing? For example, what are the things that you do all the time? Do you have any addictions in the past, in the present? You know, what are the things that you'll be caught doing at any point in time? You want to know what their habits are. You want to know what their addictions are, so that you know how to prepare yourself, number one. Two, you also know how you want to take care of them and you want to be involved in that aspect of their lives. Something else that you also need to talk about would be vision and future ambitions, right? You're going to get married to this person, you're going to join your life with theirs, and so you want to know what their plan for the future is, isn't it? Like, in terms of like a family that you want to raise and that you want to build, in terms of their career, do they have any career plans for the future? What's the career trajectory like? What are they planning? In terms of education, do they want to go back to school at some point in time? What do they want to read? Do they have that plan? Because then you're not going to be doing as a family, isn't it? So whatever they do going forward impacts you. However they spend their time, that time going forward impacts you. Whatever your partner literally does impacts you as someone who is in that relationship with them. And so it is key that at your courtship stage you ask a lot of questions. So this is everything that I have to share for now, okay, about the topics you need to talk about while you're in courtship. Definitely haven't exhausted everything, but one thing I know is when you start asking all these questions, a lot more things will become clearer to you. They will even touch on things that you didn't ask about, and then you would get more information from them, and you can ask follow-up questions that will even help you understand them better or get, you know, situations clearer than what they seem to be. Okay, let me know in the comment section if there are other questions or there are topics that you absolutely feel people need to talk about during their courtship, or what your experience has been. Let us know in the comment section. Thank you guys for always coming to my, you know, YouTube channel, engaging with me. I absolutely enjoy it. Do give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and do not forget to please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and definitely share this video with your friends and family. I love you all, and you absolutely know I do. Before I see you again the next time, do not forget to become a better version of yourself. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.